Hello everyone! This week we are doing another reaction video. You've seen the one I did about Le Calampariello speaking French, and this time I wanted to react to another video, still about French to some extent, but this one is going to be more about French culture. And I'm going to react to the video by Unintentionally Frenchified, and the video is called Bizarre French Traditions. So I haven't watched the video yet, so I'm not too sure what to expect. It's interesting to sometimes hear people talk about French culture, because sometimes it's pretty accurate, sometimes I kind of disagree. So we can have a discussion if there's any sort of, I don't know, controversies, I guess, in the video. And without further delays, let's get started.
What we consider bizarre, and especially bizarre about customs in other countries, is heavily influenced by the customs and the culture of our own country. So as an American, grew up in the Midwest, I'm going to talk to you today about 5 French customs that I found bizarre when I first moved to France, and why. The French do a lot of things that surprise foreigners about bread. First, just the general obsession about bread in France can surprise foreigners. But what I'm going to focus on today is the eating of bread and the 2 customs that I found the most bizarre. The French really wouldn't be caught dead eating while they're walking or drinking while they're walking. Even talking about to-go coffee with certain French people can be a little bit of a shocker.
Yeah, it's true. I don't think we have so much of a culture of buying a drink and drinking it on the go, unless you really are in a rush. It's not like it can't be done, but yeah, I don't really see this, especially in Paris. That's where I'm from.
But what you can find with bread is that the French will buy bread in the boulangerie, they'll walk out, and then they tear off a part of the bread and they nibble on it as they're eating.
Is that weird? It sounds pretty normal to me. I want to see where she's gonna go with this.
And even when you see like little French kids running around, often you see their parents tear off a piece of the bread, give it to the kids, and so these little toddlers are running around everywhere with their bread crunched in their hand. So that was one thing that surprised me. You cannot eat or drink on the go, but you can definitely nibble on your baguette on the go.
I wouldn't say you can't eat on the go, but it's true that it's not really done. If you did it, I don't think you would get stares or anything. I don't think there's any sort of, it's not forbidden, essentially. But yeah, I guess people don't really do it. It's better to just sit down somewhere. Or, you know, people I guess would eat at the office or something like that, or in a park. Why not, if it's not too cold?
But when you sit down for a meal and you've got bread, something that's also really different in France than the US is that there's no bread plate. So the French actually just, you know, they've cut up the bread and there's maybe a bread basket, or you tear off a piece of your bread and then you just like set it down next to your plate on the table.
What's a bread plate?
So it's okay if there are crumbs and nobody worries about germs on the table, and it's very much just kind of the way things go. I'm not actually sure why, etiquette-wise, there's not a bread plate.
I'm so confused. Like, I don't know, like, are there like plates just for putting down a piece of bread? Yeah, I'm confused. The only sort of situation where I would see a plate is when you know, after the meal, you're eating cheese and you like, you know, cutting your bread in 2, you like spreading cheese or whatever. Then yes, you would use a plate, I guess. But yeah, I have no idea what she's talking about. So yeah, I don't think we have bread plates.
Anyone who doesn't have the custom of kissing in their culture when you come to France. So we don't really kiss in the US, we tend to hug more often. So when I first got to France, I needed to learn just about le bise in general and what were the rules and when do you bise and when do you not bise. And I remember learning that if you are a girl, no matter whether it's a girl or a guy in front of you for the first time, if they're your age or younger, you will probably bise them, and if they're quite a bit older, then you might do a handshake. And then if you're a guy, you will bise all of the girls that you're meeting for the first time who are around your age, and when it comes to the guys, you'll tend to do a handshake, and same thing for older. Anyone who's older, whether it's a girl or guy, you might tend to do a handshake over the bise.
Yeah, that's actually pretty accurate. Depending on whether you're a girl or a boy, you will bise certain people and sometimes you won't. Just so you know, in case some people don't know what bise is, it's basically a kiss on the cheek. It doesn't have to actually be lips on cheeks. I don't actually tend to do that. I don't know if that's a weird thing. Other Parisians tell me if I'm weird, but I just tend to do cheek to cheek, really, personally. Oh, the only thing I would say though is that Yeah, sometimes a guy can bees another guy. That depending on the context, that's kind of accepted. I could do that if I wanted really, but I would probably just have to say something like, you know, for example, if I'm kissing girls on the cheek, I would probably, you know, if I run into a guy, I would say, well, come on, might as well, you know, do it on the cheek as well or something, you know. I would make it a bit like more like a joke or something a bit more light, I suppose. If I just went for it, maybe the guy we'd be confused because it's kind of expected that a guy would shake hands with another guy. But if you sort of make it like a jokey way, that'll be smooth, I think. I've done it and it's nothing weird. But if, you know, if the people you're with are way more like toxic masculinity kind of mindset, then I guess they might not accept it or might feel uncomfortable doing it with someone they don't know. But also, if you're within the same family, guys can kiss on the cheek as well. That's pretty fine. Yeah, but it can also be down to personal preference as well. So la bise is not always so easy, I guess.
The custom that I actually wanted to talk about today versus the bees is the number of bises that you do. The number of kisses that you have is not the same everywhere in France, but there's actually a map, and I'll send you the link as well in the video description, of what area in France does how many kisses, because it can be really confusing. You can have 2 kisses, and then in this region there's 3 kisses, but in this region there's 4. And what I find really difficult about my husband's family is most of them are from Sète, which is close to Montpellier. And then some of them, even though they're from Sète, have lived time in Paris and then moved back to Sète. So some of them do 2 and some of them do 3. And you never know what anyone's gonna do. So you often, I mean, the same way as like a handshake and a bise, you end up like going in for the 3rd kiss and nobody's there, and then you're air kissing and then they feel uncomfortable because they pulled back, and it's just such a mess. Why isn't there just the same number of bises everywhere in France to make it a little less complicated?
Well, I can't answer this question in particular, but what I do usually is either I observe, so, you know, how many bises, I love how she makes it a word and a verb, but how many bises people do before me, so, you know, if I've got a local that's there, and I don't know if it's a party, for example, and the locals are doing like 3 or 4, I'll just follow along. If I'm the first one and I have no clue, I think I'll just say, I'll ask, to be honest, I'll just say like, combien, how many? And then people will just say, oh, here we do 4, here we do 3, or I'll just go ahead and say, okay, I'm from Paris, so I'll do 2 or something. So you kind of state it a little bit. So I don't really think I've been in a situation where it's been actually awkward, because there's always this conversation, like this exchange, where you actually sort of establish how many you're going to do, essentially. So yeah, but yeah, it's a bit strange.
I'm going to take this occasion to wish my YouTube family a very happy new year, because as I'll say in this next point, in France, it's really, really important, and it's a big custom to wish people a happy new year. Mm-hmm. In the US where I grew up, it's more of a custom to send holiday cards. So sometime in December around the holidays, we tend to receive a lot of cards with photos of the family, and sometimes there's even a couple pages where the parents are explaining what the kids have been up to, what they've been up to this year. But it was very focused on in December, and there wasn't a specific day. It was just kind of throughout the whole month of December. And in France, New Year's is really where they put the focus. So the custom of wishing people a happy New Year's among friends and family is definitely very present, but also at work. So that was something that really surprised me when I first started working in France, is even people that I haven't worked with, say, at the second half of the year, they definitely send a Happy New Year card, or they'll send a Happy New Year email, and it's just a custom that we don't have in the US where I'm from, and so I was really surprised at how seriously wishing someone a Happy New Year was taken.
Interesting. I thought she was going to say that everyone wishes each other a Happy New Year, you know, in the street, at work, or whatever. And I was going to say, yeah, we do that. But I actually don't really think we do cards so much. I mean, you could, it's not like weird or anything, but I've never written a Happy New Year card ever in my life, and I don't think my parents have either. I guess we would send text, maybe call, you know, if the person is, you're really close to the person. But yeah, I don't think we do cards so much. Maybe at work, I don't know. I never worked in France around Happy New Year, around New Year's, so I'm not sure. But yeah, because that's something that surprised me when I lived in England, is that people would send me cards, and I was like, oh, thanks. But why? It was just new to me, but yeah.
So this custom I find so bizarre because we really live in a world today where we're uber aware of not offending people and trying to be sensitive to other people's feelings, and everybody doesn't have the same path and want to do the same thing and needs to fit in like this form of society. And the St. Catherine's Day is definitely leaning towards the less modern way of how we're going today, because it's a day that celebrates the saint, St. Catherine, and St. Catherine was the saint of all young women. And so there was a tradition that came about on the 25th of November that all of the women over the age of 25 that were still single and not married would pray to St. Catherine to give them a husband. I want to read you the prayer because I find it quite interesting.
Wait, I'm so confused. What is St. Catherine's Day? Okay, let's carry on.
It says, St. Catherine, oh lend me thy aid, and grant that I never shall die an old maid. A husband, St. Catherine, a good one, St. Catherine, but anyone's better than no one, St. Catherine. A husband, St. Catherine, young St. Catherine, handsome St. Catherine, nice St. Catherine, and soon St. Catherine.
What? That's bad.
Anyways, it's still apparently pretty popular in the French maisons and in the luxury and the fashion world, even if maybe we don't see it as much anywhere else. But I did find that one to be a bit of a shocker.
Wow, that one was weird. I have never heard of that. I will have to ask my friends after this video. Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Is the last custom that I'm going to talk to you about. So April Fools and April Fish Day are celebrated on the same day, and it's pretty much the same custom. The idea is to play pranks on people, but it's a little different in France because it's actually celebrated around fish. So the idea is to try to pin a fish on your friend's back or somebody's back without them knowing. And in the US, when I was young on April Fool's Day, we used to like to pin Post-it notes on our friend's back. So you'd kind of give them a tap and hope the Post-it note would stick. And on it would say something like, hit me. And then people would come up and give them a tap until they realized they had a Post-it note. Come to think of that, that sounds kind of aggressive and violent, but it was small taps.
She's right. When I was a kid, I remember the aim of the day, if we had school on that day, was to try to stick a paper fish on the back of our teachers. Not a real fish, obviously. And yeah, that's pretty innocent. It wasn't about hitting or kicking people. It was just about doing that. It was very silly. We would just like draw fishes, then like cut them out over like a sheet of paper, and then yeah, we would just stick it. That's it.
That is all for today. Those are the 5 customs that I found pretty bizarre when I first moved to France.
Alright, so that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was kind of interesting to see her perspective and like the things she highlighted, because sometimes you don't really think about the things that you do in your country that might appear normal, but actually, yeah, I mean, nothing is really normal, really. It's just like you know, your perspective and what you grew up with. But I have to say, number 4 with Saint Catherine, yeah, no clue, never heard of it. So yeah. Anyway, I will see you next week. Bye.